Motorfest Season 6 is here, and with it comes new events, so it's time to test everything and figure out what's the fastest way to get parts. Let's go! Alright, for this video, I'm not explaining the parts system, I'm only going over the various methods, assuming you already know how this system works. If you need an explanation on the part system itself, I have this video right here that you should watch first and then come back to this one for the fastest methods. Alright, let's get into it. Season 6, like I said, brought a new playlist and with it 7 new events. You might be thinking one of those events has to be the new method. Well, you're wrong. None of these events is taking the crown. So what changed exactly? Well, in short, the legendary parts per hour has been increased, which actually allowed some different methods to become more viable. Here's how. I tested all the previous season's best methods and found that I was consistently getting more parts per run in Season 6 than in Season 5. For these tests, I was running each event 5 times with 7 gold parts equipped, with Lucky and Goldfinger as my affix, but no Loot Digger set bonus. This is basically the starting point for grinding legendary parts if you're on your parts grind, so I figured it was the fairest part set to use for these tests. I recorded the part spread I got from those 5 races and the time it took to complete with the fastest possible class for that event, and that time did include loading times and restarts. With that data, I'm able to see the average parts per run and the time per run, which gives us all kinds of information. In Season 5, they introduced parts merging, which really helps the grind a lot. So to account for that, I have a column called Mergeable Legendaries. This is a calculation based on the merging system itself. One legendary part is equal to 27 greens, or 9 blues, or 3 pinks. So if you get a pink part, that's actually like getting 1/3 of a legendary. Does that make sense? So I factored this column in when looking at the total legendaries per hour and the legendary percentage. Now for the juicy part, how does each method stack up? The previous best method for legendary parts was Hummer Express at 50.82 legendaries per hour. In Season 6, Hummer Express got bumped up to 82.2 legendaries per hour, which is a sizable increase, but not enough to stay on top. For road vehicles, it ranks as the 3rd best method when done correctly. It takes about 1 minute and 25 seconds to complete and restart using a hypercar, and obviously that time does increase with other vehicle classes. In 2nd place, we have Ridin in my Buick, whose previous legendaries per hour was 34.02. Ridin in my Buick now spits out 84.61 legendaries per hour with an AGP car running times under the 3-minute mark. If you can't run it under 3 minutes, this method is really not even worth it. By the way, each of these top 3 methods have specific ways to minimize your times, which really helps increase the legendaries per hour. So I'm going to show you those full runs towards the end of the video. Check the timestamps for each of those. And finally, the best method, Get It or Donk Come Back. This event had a legendary per hour stat of 39.70 in Season 5, but now in Season 6, it spiked up to 97.81 legendaries per hour. The biggest contributing factor is the percentage of legendaries that you're getting with each run. The quality of the loot that you are getting from this race was significantly higher in my tests than the other methods, but there's a catch. The game isn't likely to drop more or less percentage per event. That's a lot of unnecessary coding for the devs. What I think we're looking at is probably a numbers game in which RNG is playing a huge role. My tests were done with 5 runs. If I had made that 500 runs, would that percentage of legendaries be closer? Probably, which definitely changes the results slightly. So here's my suggestion. First, Ride in my Buick is really only viable for hypercar and AGP because of the length of time it takes to finish. It's not good for the slower classes, so I don't really recommend it for parts. Hummer Express drops the most total parts per hour at 237.18, which means you'll have a lot of parts to use for merging. And while Get It or Donk Come Back is a lot less than that at 197.08 parts per hour, it offers the ability to be played in all classes because of how short it is, except Monster, that's restricted from this event. The vehicle's speed doesn't really affect the outcome as much as it does in the longer races. Not to mention, it's a lot easier of a course to drive because it's basically a straight line, so So it's a lot more consistent for various skill levels. So to break it down basically, if you don't have the category fully leveled up, you're going to want to use Hummer Express for all ground vehicles. But if you've got the vehicle at max perf level, I would use Get It or Donk Come Back for the remainder of your grind. Again, use Hummer Express for monster trucks because, well, monster trucks are excluded from Get It or Donk Come Back. All right, let's move on to planes and boats. Nothing really has changed with boats. For boats, you want to use the race called Yacht Surfing, and you can greatly reduce your time by switching the time of day to night where there aren't any waves. I recommend using the Vector V40R as it's the fastest boat for the race, and I would hunt for treasure every 3 races or so just to mix it up a bit. There's a treasure map linked on my website if you want to know where every single piece of treasure can spawn. It's a really nice map. It's made by Tomco. It's militiagamingco.com, and then click on Motorfest tools from the top. For planes, on the other hand, the new event called the High Clash, which is in the new playlist Red Bull Speed Clash, is the one you want to go for. I tested both this event and the previous best event called Skyline Ride, and honestly, they're both really close. But the new Red Bull one is slightly better. It just rewards more points in general, which led to more legendaries. It drops about 57 legendaries per hour when you account for the other parts that you can merge into legendaries as well. And lastly, I'll touch on drag parts. The methods have not changed here. The best way definitely is the treasure hunt and slalom switch methods. Basically, you find a treasure box, then you go do 3 or 4 slaloms with one car, and then switch into a drag vehicle just before the finish line of your slalom using the hot swap feature. To do that, you have to set your drag vehicle as your favorite, and then you can just use your hot swap to swap into the drag vehicles right before the finish line, and there you go, you get drag parts. Now you can do the same thing with boats and planes and helicopters too if you really just don't want to drive those vehicles in the game. Usually, like I said, I would do like say 4 slalom events and then search for a treasure box, and then go back to 4 slalom events and then search for a treasure box, because there is a waiting time in between when treasure boxes spawn, and it's around 2 to 3 minutes. So you want to make sure you get something done in those 2 to 3 minutes. Just make sure you're opening the treasure box with the vehicle you want the parts for. Then, after you open those treasure boxes, just keep going back to the slaloms. It works best with slaloms, but you can do it with other events like bullseyes as well. Just a little note before I end the video, Grand Racing was the worst option in terms of parts. Not only do you get the fewest parts, but the quality is bad also. I got mostly blues and pinks, but it fakes you out because it shows you the best loot on the end screen, so it seems like you're getting a bunch of golds. I strongly recommend staying away from grand races if getting parts fast is your goal. Not to mention, you don't get to pick which classes you're grinding for. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope this helps. Here are my complete runs on Hummer Express, riding in my Buick, and Get It or Donk Come Back. I will catch you on the next one, and remember, if you have any questions, send me a DM on Instagram or Discord. I'll gladly answer. I read every single message that comes my way. Thank you guys. I will catch you on the next one. Trigger out.